23 orders.
And then he'll show you.
So you're off?
Could you be done?
Oh, okay.
We're good? All right, it is 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call us to order and invite everyone to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved. Meg Scanlon.
Oh, thank you, Meg. Sarah seconds. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. We're going to move along to approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda this evening includes approval of the April 2nd, 2024 Board of Ed meeting minutes, the April 23rd, 2024 Board of Education special joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, the minutes, the approval of the April 23rd, 2024 Board of Education special meeting minutes, the approval of caring for classroom teacher donations to Valley View in the amount of $211.93, and the approval of caring for classroom teacher donations to Gildersleeve in the amount of $277.35. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kim. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you. We're going to move along to audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us in person who wishes to address the board this evening? Mr. Pelton.
I'll be quick, I promise you.
No, that's all right. If you could just...
I'm Mike Pelton, 124 Isinglass Hill Road. Some of you know, but I don't know if all of you know, we're doing a run-a-thon to raise funds for the track team and the cross-country teams. And as a representative of the Board of Selectmen, we're challenging the Board of Education to do more miles than we can. I'm not sure of the prize yet, we'll come up with something. But that'll be June 1st and 2nd. All of you are invited to do that. Get your running shoes on. I know some of you haven't run in a while, but I'd like to see you there. It should be a lot of fun. It'll be a great event. I'm leaving copies of this over there for you, but we're encouraging the families, the kids, grandparents, you, as many people in town to join us. But it should be a fun time, and it's for a good cause. So we're throwing the gauntlet down to you guys.
When is the event?
It's June 1st and 2nd. I'll leave the stuff over here. But we're raising it all for the funds for the track and things that we will need for them. So it should be a lot of fun.
Mike.
So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. I think there's more information on the forms, and there's another Board of Ed meeting before the event, so we can share more specifics about it for sure. Thanks. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to address the board at this point? How about anyone with us online? No? Okay, thank you. And there's another opportunity at the end of the meeting if anyone's waiting. All right, I'm excited. We haven't had a Portland Public School Spotlight in a couple of meetings, and so tonight we're packing in 3, and we're going to start off with the Portland High School CABE Leadership Award recipients. Dr. Britton's going to walk us through this.
We have some outstanding students to introduce, and I want Ms. Lawson to join me for the high school ones, and I'll have Mr. Hirschon join me for the middle school. But this is your award. So our CABE Leadership Award, I'll just read you the letter that students get from CABE with their award, and this is signed by CABE President Leonard Lockhart and Executive Director Pat McGarity, both of whom we know well. It says, congratulations for being chosen to receive CABE Student Leadership Award. This prestigious award recognizes your distinguished leadership. Leadership is a quality that is hard to define but remains critical to our society. CABE has developed criteria that help to define leadership. Your principal received a list of these criteria and was asked to name Portland High School students who met them, and then of course Portland Middle School too. Your principal considers you a school leader. We are pleased to present you, together with other student leaders across Connecticut, with our 27th Annual CABE Student Leadership Award. You should take pride in the recognition bestowed upon you. We encourage you to continue your leadership skills as you take advantage of new challenges. Again, Our congratulations and all the best to you in your future endeavors. So that is the letter these students are receiving from CABE. And I would like to first recognize our first Leadership Award recipient, Annabelle Marusha. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Annabelle. Annabelle Marushak is a hardworking and driven junior at Portland High School. She is in the top 10 of her class and has an impressive transcript full of rigorous honors and AP courses. Annabelle is a 3-season athlete and an active member of her class. She is a leader of the Key Club, DECA, Photography Club, class government, and on the announcement crew. Annabelle is involved in all aspects of the school. Teachers describe her as tireless and amazing. Annabelle was honored with Academic Excellence Awards in American Studies, Biology, and Multimedia. Last year, she was recognized again for her service and leadership in the Key Club. Aside from all that she has accomplished, Annabelle is kind, polite, and responsible young lady who has the respect of faculty and staff alike. Annabelle has an incredible work ethic and an unmatched drive. She is determined when she sets a goal and is laser focused on her goal to attend the United States Military Academy in West Point. It will be exciting to watch Annabelle embrace the opportunities that lie ahead. Congratulations, Annabelle. Our second recipient is Morgan Pineda. Morgan is a talented and determined junior at Portland High School. While taking an incredibly challenging academic course load, Morgan is proudly a member of the top 10 in her class. For the past 3 years, Morgan has maintained a high level of academic rigor in honors and AP classes, while also being an active participant in the school community. Morgan is a member of the National Honor Society, DECA, and also a captain of the girls varsity basketball team and president of the Key Club. Morgan was honored with Academic Excellence Awards in Integrated Physical Science, Marketing, and Physical Education. As a strong junior, Morgan is a role model to others and is described as, quote, a conscientious worker who gives her all to everything she does, unquote. She carries herself with confidence and pushes herself to always do her best. Morgan plans to attend college after she graduates, where she may study business. Congratulations, Morgan. So here to help me present these is Mr. Hershon, the middle school principal. And our first recipient is Fiona Graham. Is Fiona here? Excited to tell you a little bit about Fiona. Fiona is an 8th grade student at Portland Middle School who exemplifies all the characteristics of a leader. Fiona stands as a positive role model in the building, being detail-oriented and extremely positive. Not only has Fiona achieved high honors in every quarter of her middle school career, but she is also an active member of the art club, ensemble band, chorus, and student council. If that wasn't enough, she holds the honor of being the first ever middle school executive producer for the middle school morning announcements team, which she runs with a great deal of professionalism and commitment. Congratulations. Is Erica Tyne here? Erica. Erica has demonstrated excellent leadership qualities in both the classroom and in extracurricular activities. As president of the Student Council, she has strong communication skills to convey creative ideas to improve the climate of the school. Erica is committed to each event and makes sure that every student feels included. In student council, she helps run a student night out during the winter for students to spend time with their peers outside of school. In the classroom, Erica is a great participant in discussions and facilitates small group work with all of her peers. Congratulations.
That's right. Do we have all four?
Yeah, do we have all four? Whoa, do you want to get in?
That's, no, let's just get one of the students. That's great. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
There we go.
Some nice certificates.
Kate, it's almost like you have a little bit of experience orchestrating this.
Everyone take notes that way.
Trying to take alternating flashes.
Wonderful. Well done. Congratulations. Congratulations to all four of you. It's wonderful. The next item that we have, the last item we have under our spotlight this evening is the Portland High School Writing Center, which I believe Ms. Lawson's going to walk us through.
Good evening. Thank you, board members, for allowing us to spotlight the Portland High School Writing Center. Our Writing Center has been in place for 2 years now and is one of our most highly successful course offerings we have at school that benefits the students who take the class as well as those who use the Writing Center. So I'd like to introduce Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Fogel, assisted by Annabelle, our new CABE Award winner, who are going to share with you their experiences and the purpose of the Portland High School Writing Center.
We do have slides. I don't know if
Okay,
you
wonderful.
want to use them or if
Sure.
they're coming up.
Do you want us to dim the lights for you a little bit?
It usually works with the lights.
Okay.
Whatever you use.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not all of them.
The lights are a little fun in here. Usually just one. There we go. Hi everyone, I'm Kaylee Smith. I'm one of the high school English teachers here at Portland, and I helped start the Portland High School Writing Center. Kaylee, do you mind? Thank you so much. This is our second year, and we've already accomplished quite a lot, and I'm extremely proud of the tutors and students who have utilized this resource. Just this year, we have had over 200 tutoring sessions. My tutors have also worked really hard to create student-made resources so that students within the school can get advice from our tutors who are training to support them in their writing skills. And we were also lucky enough to present at UConn this year. The seniors were able to talk about the different resources we've made and how other writing centers can kind of replicate our model. So our aim is to support students in becoming better writers. Some of the papers and topics that we've helped this year include NHS application essays, AP Lang, tragic heroes, research papers, and at the beginning of the year, we've also worked with American Dream in the American Studies class and the Renaissance DBQ in Global Studies. So I brought Ms. Fogel here to talk a little bit about her experience with our center.
Hi everyone, thank you for having us. So I'm Sarah Fogel and I teach, as Kaylee Smith just said, freshman and sophomore classes. I also teach a senior AP class as well. And for me personally, the Writing Center has been a wonderful resource, and I know that's true for my students as well. Especially having underclassmen, like freshmen who are just coming into the high school, it can be a little bit overwhelming to try and connect with other students, and the Writing Center is one way where it's been really great for my freshmen to be paired up with a junior or a senior and feel like they have that connection and be able to work with them and learn skills, but also like feel like they're a part of the school community. So the Writing Center has been just wonderful in that way. And I've had many kids who are really scared to go and do that because it's scary to share your work with someone else. And it's especially scary if you're 14 years old and you're meeting up with an 18-year-old. But almost unanimously, I've had kids come back and basically say that it was an amazing experience, and they'll actually seek out the Writing Center on their own time, which is a wonderful thing. It's also great because they can get one-on-one tutoring in a way that I can't always provide in the classroom with 20 kids. So the Writing Center tutors will help them with thesis statements, with spelling and grammar, with how to incorporate evidence, and they can sit down with them for half an hour and really go over that stuff, whereas I can't do that in my setting. So that's been wonderful as well. And it's also just made the kids think more about their writing, which is great across the board. It's so easy to just produce something and then never think about it again. And the Writing Center process really makes them think about what they've done, what they can improve upon, and how they can go about sharing that with someone else to get really good feedback. So I'm very happy that the Writing Center is something that exists in the school.
And Annabelle's going to tell you a little bit about the student perspective. Would you mind going one more slide?
So I'm Annabelle. I'm a current junior tutor at the Writing Center. I first heard about the Writing Center last year when I was a sophomore, and I was actually able to go and seek help on a paper I was struggling with. So through that experience, I just felt I gained a lot of knowledge and kind of wanted to give it back. So I decided to become a tutor this year. And not only has it been beneficial for myself as I'm learning new skills through Ms. Smith, not only writing skills, but how to interact with others and help others. But it's obviously also really helpful to the tutors, the tutees, as I'm able to help students with papers that I personally had to write in the past. I think it's just a really good outlet that our community has started to build to be able to help the younger grades and just build connections with them.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for our guests before they leave about the Writing Center?
I just want to add, because she's too humble, she won't tell you. When we found Kaylee, it was 4 or 5 years ago now, Kaylee.
5 years.
5 years ago, right? Kaylee had been working in the Writing Center at UConn through her teacher prep program. So when she told us that sold us on this, and we both had, Kaylee in particular, had the vision of bringing this to us. This is what happens when you hire great people. You hire great people, and they do and create great, amazing things. So thank you for all of your effort to bring this to us.
I have a question. As one of the newer members of the Board of Ed, I just have a couple quick questions. So is the Writing Center a club, and are these papers assigned to club members, or are you strictly limited to just helping younger students with their homework?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So it is a course. So the students who are the writing tutors are taking the course. They get the instruction in how to be a writing tutor, and they get the instruction on how to improve their own writing as well as the writing of others. Students can use the Writing Center for any writing assignment that they have. They sign up to go during their flex period, which is on the other side of their lunch, and they can get peer-reviewed feedback really on anything that they're working on. Many times, some of our classroom teachers, like Mrs. Fogel, will include a visit to the Writing Center as part of the writing process. So before it can be turned in, it has to be peer-reviewed. It's a really good opportunity for kids to get that kind of practice, because those peer tutoring centers are what they'll access in college and beyond.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Kate. Were there any other questions? No? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming in and sharing that with us.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. We are going to move along to our student representative report. And we have both of our student reps with us this evening. You have the floor.
Over April break, students that are involved in the Portland High School band and chorus traveled to Florida to attend the Disney trip. Students had an amazing time exploring all the different parks and rides. Both the band and chorus performances were very successful. Less than 2 weeks after the Disney trip, the chorus and band had their annual extravaganzas. These concerts allow the music departments from across the district to come together and perform what they've been working on throughout the year. Watching the progression from the 5th grade performing all the way up to the high schoolers is truly amazing. The Student Senate just adopted a new version of the school constitution, which discusses the roles and responsibilities of the senators and class officers. The new constitution also outlines the updated versions and guidelines that are in place for student government elections. Additionally, the Student Senate has planned a variety of events to honor the professionals of Portland High School for Teacher Appreciation Week. This includes a breakfast buffet, festive decorations for the teacher's room, and many more. Thank you to all the Portland families who have donated items.
Last week, members of the National Honor Society hosted a 7th grade promotion event which invited students in the middle school to tour and learn more about the offerings we have here at Portland High School. We presented them with information about core classes, extracurriculars, sports, and much more. The students were also able to walk around the school with designated tour guides and learn more about the different classrooms and teachers. This event was held in hopes to increase awareness about the unique opportunities we have here at the high school. Thank you to Mr. Bernard, Mrs. Pidio, and the middle school teachers and paras for helping us organize and run this event. Speaking of Mr. Bernard, recently the annual Jostens Connecticut Advisor Appreciation Luncheon and Award Ceremony was held at St. Clements. Unbeknownst to him, Mr. Bernard was selected to be the inaugural recipient of the Connecticut Yearbook Advisor of the Year Award. This award is classified as the highest level of achievement in yearbook advising. We would like to congratulate Mr. Bernard for this accomplishment and recognize all his hard work and effort. Yesterday, April 6th, the first round of AP tests commenced with AP Gov and Chemistry being held first. This is just the start of testing, as there are many more to come, which will be held in the last few weeks of May. The junior class has been working diligently on their individual capstone project these past few months. Capstone presentation night is on May 30th, and all the Board of Education members will be receiving an invitation soon.
Thank you. Any questions for our student reps? No? Thank you for the updates. Much appreciated. All right, we're going to move on to communications and updates. Dr. Britton?
Okay, I do, is probably not surprised, I have a few communications and updates for you. First in your packet, you'll receive the enrollment report. Stable, the way I would describe it. Especially, I do really like now that we're including those outplacements and the open choice enrollment. But, where we started at 125, we're at 130. So, stable across the board. So I'll stop there, see if there are any questions about the enrollment report. Okay. Piece of exciting news. So last time we met, you approved 4 Gildersleeve grants, right? Those grants went to the Gildersleeve Committee. But what a blessing Gildersleeve is for this town. Amazing. And the way it works, in case anybody needs a little background in it, is there's a lump sum of money that's invested in the market. And however much money the fund spins off from the market, a percentage of that goes out each year and is considered as part of the grants that are awarded. It's been a pretty good year in the market. So we found out that there was don't get me exactly on these numbers, but I believe it was 108,000 that was available to us. If you added up all of our grants, we were a little closer to 116. So we were a little bit over. So the grants were presented to the Gildersleeve Committee, and all of them were awarded. I'll just remind you of what they were. Bless you. The AI Steering Committee grant was awarded in full. I am very excited about that. We're going to put a steering committee together, bring in some speakers. I already started working with Eric on this. This is something that I'm happy that we have that seed money to get ahead of. So that grant was awarded in full. Expect that will show up in some recommended goals for next year. And AI is certainly something that's going to change our life, potentially for better or worse. So it's important that we start to understand what this means for all of us. The Pfeiffer assessment that was asked for by a special education teacher at Gildersleeve, awarded in full. We've already put through the POs, I believe, and are in the process of securing those assessments. The middle school studio was reduced slightly. Actually, Chuck had done a pretty good job of cutting into it already. There are was a small amount that was reduced for some of the facility enhancement that is necessary. But otherwise, what we got is deeply appreciated. We're in the process of putting that together, and Chuck will keep us posted as we see it happen.
Just reduced down from a full wall to a partial wall, which saved the ton on air conditioning.
Yep.
That was really it.
Oh, that's good news.
Split. So it worked great. And then the last one, of course, was the track grant, also reduced slightly, not a ton. We'll cut down on the number of some of the things we're ordering, but that include the hurdles and the timing system. We've met to move quickly on that so that we can try to get the materials for this track season. I think we got the hurdle PO through.
Yeah, that went through.
And the timing system, we have some quotes, and we know that's a little bit more detailed, but I think the hurdles will be in hopefully soon, and we'll be able to use them this year. Otherwise, we'll have them, and they're going to be beautiful with Portland logo on them, and this is great news. So again, the grants were all approved. We have them. POs we're moving quickly on each of these. I think these are fabulous enhancements, and I can't say enough awesome things about the Gildersleeve Grant Committee. So thank you for approving those grants. We pitched them, and we're awarded those grants.
That's wonderful news.
All right. I did include in your packet the results of our recent audit. So this was presented at a Board of Selectmen meeting. I know Laura was there and I was there. The most important things you want to read in any auditor's report is, quote, "We did not report any material noncompliance with laws and regulations." That means you don't have to go to jail, so we're happy with that. And also, we did not report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control over financial reporting. Also what you want to hear, this is a reflection of Stephanie and her outstanding oversight, and Tom and everything he does to make sure that we're accounting the right way. In particular, while this reflects both the town and the Board of Ed budget, they do go through and pick a grant usually to audit. They don't do them all, but this year you'll notice they took a look at our open choice program grant funds and gave us, quote, "unmodified clean opinion of compliance." This is our accountants speak for nice job. So we're happy that those were the results. I thought I'd share those with you. Thank you very much, Stephanie and Tom and the others. I know I see them working late into the night, pouring through line items and making sure that we're in compliance with all of the laws and regulations, which clearly we are.
And we start all over again, July 14th, which is great.
It's part of the circadian rhythms of the year. So nice job all around, but audit is clean.
That's good news.
Okay, not so good news. Sad news, good for her, I'm excited, but I did include in your packet a resignation from Jessica Brewer. Wish Jessica all the best. I'm looking forward to celebrating her years of service. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to do that yet. This is a pretty fresh and breaking news, but Jessica has accepted a position in another district. I wish her all the best. And again, we're going to celebrate with Jessica and make sure we recognize her for outstanding leadership and stewardship of Valley View for 9 years. Is it 9 or 10? 8? 10 years. 8. Years learning. Bear with me. I am meeting with the Personnel Committee next week.
Yes.
To review several things. One of the agenda items will be selecting a replacement, whether we want to do 1 year only or not. Clearly, I think the 1 year only, depending on how things go over the next few weeks, which is another important thing I'd share with you tonight, it might be the best move. So Personnel Committee is going to talk about a process at our next meeting, and certainly the board will be brought into the loop as we go forward.
Great.
So
we'll need to add that as an agenda item, because I think it's not on there yet. Okay.
it's on there for the Personnel Committee. We just updated.
Okay. Oh, you must, great. I haven't seen the update.
Okay. Before I jump to my last one, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that this is Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you to our teachers who are on the Board of Education. Tomorrow is Nurse Appreciation Day, so we have lots of celebrations going on this week. Dawn, Eric, and I are making strawberry shortcake sundaes for all of our teachers this week. And the PTO is having lunches for them, and our building principals are doing things to recognize our teachers. certainly I know you join me in saying Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you for being educators. We are blessed to have all of our teachers here. But it's a great time to just kind of pause and recognize that, mark the occasion. So Teacher Appreciation Week is underway, and we're doing everything to celebrate and recognize our teachers as part of that, and our nurses for tomorrow. Okay, last one, and this might invite some questions or feedback. As you know, last time we met, we had our joint Board of Education, Board of Selectmen meeting, relatively long, detailed presentation. We kind of cut that meeting off at the end because I think people were getting a little tired and recognizing that it was going long. As a reminder, our follow-up Board of Education, Board of Selectmen meeting is next Tuesday, right? So that meeting will be largely, there won't be much presentation of new material. I think it's going to be Q&A time, and talking about what we need to do now as boards of education moving forward, and I'll give you some feedback on that. As a follow-up to that meeting, I organized 3 community forums. Thank you, Dave, Tim, and Laurel, for coming to most of them. They weren't super well attended. The first I had one person. The second night I had scheduled it in conjunction with a band extravaganza, knowing there would be a lot of people for that, hoping people would show up to this. 5 people showed up. The third night I scheduled it the same with the Brainerd Place presentation, hoping people would show up for that and attend this. About 2 people show up. Not a lot of people, which is okay, and I did receive a couple of emails and phone calls in the follow-up. Generally, I would characterize the feedback I've received from those community forums and emails and conversations I've gotten with questions is, it's a lot, right? There's a lot of change going on in Portland right now. People drive across the bridge and see a big development. People are aware of the Nordic Spa. People are aware of this, and it's all happening it's a lot. It's a lot for people to take in and try to understand. And I do recognize, of course, that the presentation I gave was chock full of information with blocking diagrams and schedules and financial pictures. So I think what's happening now, and the feedback I'm getting, is people are processing it. I think there are 2 things that are common that are crystal clear and everybody agrees to, and nobody has pushed back at all on either concept. One, that something must be done, right? That the schools are in a state of disrepair after 30 years of no major capital investments in them, and that something must be done. Nobody is satisfied with the current state of any of our facilities, but particularly Valley View and Gildersleeve and Brownstone. People recognize we have to do something. We've not done enough to keep those buildings in the kind of place where they're going to sustain learning for another 30 years if we don't make the investment now. And I think it was nice for people to recognize that, hey, the buildings were built in 1960. 30 years later, you did something in the 1990s. We're 30 years later. That's the general time frame. We're seeing a 30-year. Brownstone built in the 30s. 1960s, you did something. 1990s, you did something. Here we are again, 2000. Right? 30 years is here, and it's time for this generation of Portland people to step up and make an investment in the schools because they need it. Everybody recognizes that. The second thing, I have not heard anybody say that it's a good idea to maintain 3 elementary schools for 680 kids. I think everybody recognizes that running 5 schools for 1,200 students is an awful lot. And I think people recognize that the overhead maintenance upkeep is such that at minimum, closing 1 elementary school is a good idea. Now, there's lots of different opinions I'm hearing about which one. Right? I almost feel like I'm back to the very early days of the facility study committee when, is it close Gildersleeve? Is it close Valley View? Is it close Brownstone? Everybody, several people, have an opinion about whether one and which one it should be. And so a lot of my time has been spent, one gentleman said, why aren't we considering mothballing Valley View? We should do that right now. And I've talked about, well, that's what our facility study committee did. We looked at the pros and cons, and the cons outweighed the pros. But the reality is you could close any one, take your pick. I'll tell you how to do it. It's just which makes the most sense from a teaching and learning perspective and a cost perspective. That's what the facility study committee spent 2 whole years working on. The other thing that people were, I think, taken aback by is the financials of it, right? That actually doing nothing is more expensive than doing something. And, you know, hey, financial literacy is important. That's why we're putting a financial literacy course in the program of studies for next year. Kate's going to talk to you about that tonight. Nice segue there, right? But people have to understand the power of compounding interest and how much money costs and what it looks like, you know, what's the difference between net and gross. And, you know, I think that those numbers that I put up with 25,000 if you make it $88 million, 102 if you keep all the schools, 57. People really struggled with some of that, and I spent a lot of time with people explaining my logic behind it, for better or worse. Some people are with me now after those conversations. Some people are still struggling to understand how $44 million turns into 88, or how 88, if you take out the overhead savings, actually nets out to 25. It's complicated. So I just wanted to give you that feedback. Those conversations were held and are still ongoing. Also, you do have an email in there from Lou Hare. Lou and I have had some conversations. What Lou wanted, I think, to emphasize in his letter, and I'll read it to you because this part I think is the most important. Lou has been consistent, and he's still in a position where he's of the mindset that having two smaller schools is the wiser move. But I really want to read, because this is the part I think that is the essence of his letter, and it's the last paragraph. Quote, "There are pros and cons for both one and two school proposals. However, that said, we absolutely do not," you see, capital bold, "do not want to see take place is a referendum for the 3-school and do-nothing proposals. Both of these proposals show lack of foresight over the long term of saving tax dollars. They also risk delay of incredibly needed repairs that would most likely be fixed in drips and drabs. Valley View's roof has been leaking for over 10 years. Maintaining 3 schools would definitely cost more, and bold, let me point this out, more importantly, it would deprive Portland students of educationally sound environment." So I think what Lou is saying there is something has to be done, right? That a decision needs to be made and move forward at this point. And that while the one school consolidation to one school wouldn't be his preferred model, doing nothing is definitely the last thing we should do. Like, doing nothing isn't an option anymore.
I'm sorry, but why are we weighting his opinion so heavily?
Lou was the chair of the facility study committee.
Very good.
He put a lot of hours and time into this, and
Okay.
you know, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the work that he did. So at the end of this, I think that we're reaching a point where it's decision time, right? And that leads me to my last few things. I just want to kind of throw it out there, and then I'll entertain questions. Otherwise, you know, we're going to be around this table next Tuesday with a lot more time for Q&A. Did include in your packet a couple of things. The cost estimates from Fryer, you have 2 there. Thought you'd like to see that. They're also linked in the Google slide presentation that's on the website, but I wanted you to have that copy. The most up-to-date ed specs plan, right? So you saw drafts of the ed specs plan. Those drafts were used by Fryer. Over the past week, I went back into that draft, tweaked it, updated it, changed dates and square footage and other things to match Fryer's opinion and those dollar amounts. What you have in your Google Drive is the updated draft of the ed specs plan. So you have Fryer's cost analysis and the ed specs plan, and then of course you can see the blocking diagrams and everything else. That ed specs plan reflects all of those things. So what you saw before was a draft. This is about finished document.
Did you say Lou Pear's email is on the drive too?
It is, and we all received it by email as well,
Very good.
but I'm not sure. He might have left you off by accident.
No, I'm probably.
You weren't on it
waiting
either, Sarah?
For access.
Okay,
Oh, you
it
didn't
is
see
in the
either?
drive, but
It's on the drive. Okay.
it's in the drive. I can also forward it to you if that's,
Okay.
if you didn't receive it.
So as a reminder, here are the things that will need to happen over the month of May and early June to get us to decision time, right? That the board's role in this would be an approval of the ed specs plan. My recommendation is that we should be looking at the ed specs plan now as a first read, really a second read, like a discussion. I think that at our next Board of Education meeting in May, I think it should be on there as a potential action item. Right? So the Board of Ed would need to approve the ed specs plan. The Board of Selectmen would need to approve a question, right? And that's got to be negotiated with bond counsel. It comes out in a lot of different factors and considerations, right? I know that 44 million is, I think, that very conservative place where we're talking now, how that changes when soft costs are expended and what our actual reimbursement rate is and how much more we get because of pre-K and how much more we get because of our relationship with open choice and what happens when the bonding for the high school, middle school comes off in August 2025. All of those things have to be factored in long term, but I think that right now that 44 million number is the one that we're looking at, right? The Board of Selectmen would need to set the motion for what I believe would be the November federal election. If those two things happen, Stephanie and I have everything we need to write a grant, and Stephanie and I were talking about it today. We're going to go find a quiet place where nobody will bother us and sequester ourselves away and write this grant, which is going to take us some time. Appendix A must be the ed specs plan approved by the board. Appendix B has to be those approvals through the Board of Selectmen, which gives us everything we need to meet a June 30th deadline for the state. If we don't hit that June 30th deadline, we'll be talking about this again with the potential for June 30th, 2025. That's the next round. So that was a lot.
Yeah. And I guess this isn't a question so much as it's a request to board members that we know with our joint meeting coming up on the 14th and the Q&A that I'm going to ask, as we have it, has been our practice in the budget season. If you have questions ahead of time that you're mulling over, if you are willing to send those to Charles ahead of time, I think that's a valuable practice, because especially, I've heard questions, well, what happens if it's a 20-year bond versus a 30-year bond, or what happens with the reimbursement from the state and with these additional factors. So particularly if these are financially driven questions, I think giving Charles and Stephanie and Tom a little bit of time ahead of time to process those and make sure they bring that information to us is very helpful.
Yeah, because those questions definitely going to need input from Stephanie, Tom, Ryan, David Eisenthal.
Yeah.
I think that they have the MBAs, right? They're the financial folks. They're going to have to answer those in detail. The hard part is going to be, even some of those answers can't be answered yet.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, a very important number is that percent reimbursement. We won't know until July 1, which is after June 30th,
Yeah.
right? Which makes this complicated. And also, we don't know yet, because Stephanie's working on this, what that 5% for early childhood means, what that up to 10% for open choice means, right? So the hard part is going to be, some of these things actions are going to have to be taken before things are actually known because of that June 30th deadline. And the reality is that $66 million number, it can't get stale, or it's going up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
One comment I was going to make is, since we're heavily into the finance, is there a way we can get one of those finance, no offense to you, Stephanie, the other finance people here next Wednesday? Because the Board of Selectmen aren't going to send questions ahead of time probably. They're going to ask them that night, and we're all going to not have the answer. We might not have the exact answer, but if there's somebody, a Todd Robinson or a couple other gentlemen you mentioned, I don't know them, somebody here that maybe has some expertise.
We'll ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll ask.
I think that's important. The other thing that concerns me is what seems to be sticking people from making a forward decision is the result of the facility or the town building committee to determine what happens with those three schools. And I don't know that that's a tremendous sticking point at this point if everybody has the mindset that they will not remain vacant, that there will be, and I believe there have been some conversations with developers, but obviously those buildings aren't going anywhere until the new building is built, and we don't need them to house the grade configuration that will occur during that change. So I think some emphasis needs to be put on the fact that the will of the people and the will of the voters and all of us is not to, repeat the central school 20-year vacancy that occurred that everybody likes to remind everybody about. I think that's going to be a key to moving forward.
Yeah.
Charles, I had a question on the conceptual rough draft order, number 1, number 2. Is the only difference between those two the second one includes the Gildersleeve costs?
No, one includes the state reimbursement and cost to town. You look right at there's a little box.
Yeah, and the demo.
Well, it's a lot.
It's the second one from
like
April
27
9th.
pages of stuff, so.
Yeah, the first one was sent to us, and we went back and said, can you give us another copy broken out by town, state costs, and I think the Gildersleeve demolition costs are in that one too.
Yeah.
Right, so the
Tim,
one that's most useful is
April
PDF
9th.
number 2?
Yes, it says April 9th at the bottom of the cover page, and that's the most up-to-date copy that is most useful for us to look at this point.
That's more helpful. I appreciate it. I just want to comment too on that. A, Lou's letter, and B, I don't know what we call them, the opportunities for people to come and be heard,
Forums, yeah.
speak, and forums. Thank you. I thought there wasn't a lot there for people, but one of the ones we had some really in-depth conversation, which was really helpful, and I think to Meg's point about, I think a lot of people feel very strongly about that there needs to be some notion as to what's going to happen certainly to Brownstone. I think Gildersleeve is kind of a loss unless we're not going to redo it, but it's a real. I think that's a real thing. I think we're going to have to confront that, and I think what he's talking about, especially with the size of that school. It's unprecedented. I mean, there's only 3 other schools in the whole state, I think he said, that and they were magnet schools, that were not magnet schools, that had that number of students. And I think it's going to be a tough sell for folks, and we don't want to be left with a brownstone that sits there and languors. And that's just my thought on it.
I'm curious if, and Dave, maybe you as liaison to the Board of Selectmen would have insight into this, what the committee that Ryan appointed related to repurposing buildings, what timeline is that group working on? Like, would you have some answers before the referendum?
Dave's on there.
Correct.
Yeah,
But you got to understand, though, that we're going to be using these buildings for 3-4 at least years. So nobody's going to sign on the dotted line saying, okay, I want a deal today. But we're getting a lot of interest and a lot of possibilities where we can't guarantee it, but we can feel highly confident that we can repurpose both buildings in one way, shape, or the other. Gildersleeve might be a repurposing a little bit different than Brownstone, but there's opportunity there. We've got 4 or 5 different people that have said positive things, but again, nobody's going to sign on the dotted line until we have an empty building. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
And Dave, are we considering selling either of them, or is the town just
Well,
holding on to them and leasing
Everything's
them?
on the table.
Okay.
We're looking at different angles. One of them is, trying not to have any additional cost if possible. So Brownstone, I think, is a little bit more, hey, let's keep that within, our family maybe, or something that we have a lot of restrictions on what someone could do if they did buy it. Whereas Gildersleeve, out in the middle of, on the space kind of setback a little bit, there's maybe some more options there of, is it a facility for special needs kids, or is it eventually a developer wants to buy it and tear it down and put houses up there? I don't know. We're exploring all those options, but there's pluses and minuses. Obviously, Gildersleeve has 16.5 acres. That's a positive. Not all of it's usable, but it's still positive. Brownstone's got a great location. And again, I could talk for an hour on this stuff, but we're in a perfect storm now where people are saying, like, Nordic Spa is going to be in one spot, Brainerd Place could be another spot, and Brownstone sits in the middle. And if our downtown gets, kind of revitalized like the Economic Development Commission wants it to be, that could be a great spot for a lot of different things.
Yeah. Does the property behind the Brownstone School butt up against the quarry property?
No,
It doesn't?
There's a
greenhouse.
There's a greenhouse and then some additional.
So there is no addition, no access there.
You can walk.
But it is a prime location, for
Yeah,
sure.
but I was thinking if
Yeah.
there were like a way you could put picnic tables on the upper part of the Nordic Spa, and there was like a backyard there, kind of, you could make that into a hotel and they could walk easily to the Nordic Spa
Yeah,
from there,
yeah.
but not.
Yeah, my only other comment.
Have you approached Nordic Spa about that property, about the Brownstone?
No, they're not even in town yet, so, but they have said they have an interest in leasing some town property for parking, and they are interested, I don't know if this is public knowledge, into the Brownstone property by the river, possibly putting in a bid for that when we do go out to do that stuff, type of thing. So there are some growth opportunities from some
That
of this.
seems like an
stuff happening.
opportunity there when it's within walking distance to them. I think we'd be remiss not to mention it to them that it's in our purview right now that we may be leasing it.
Yeah.
Just to see if they're half interested. And they're 2 years down the road anyway,
Yeah.
right, with their grand opening.
But I think the important point is that the committee that Dave is our liaison to, serving on, is doing a very thorough job right now of vetting a whole lot of different options. There's likely not going to be a one solution by the time that we get to a referendum in November, but hopefully there will be several really well thought out opportunities, and that at the point that they're able to pursue those, there will be options on the table.
Right.
And what about us as far as our proposal to the town right now? Do we have an option B so that if we do go to referendum, we're not caught and have to go back to square one?
From what I understand is the Great Blue Survey was done, and the preferred option, first pick, was the one we are doing now.
Yeah.
The second was maintain all 3 schools. The third was explore the facility study committee plan. To me, right now, option B would be, and this is something that both boards need to talk about, right, is that put it out to referendum with the option that we're talking about now in November. If it passes, we have a very busy 3 years ahead of us to build a beautiful school and have the swing space and do the things we need to do.
Yeah.
If it does not, I think very quickly, a second bonding needs to go out. Well, you didn't want this, now we need 25 million to fix the 3 schools up and carry the overhead and start working on some of or all of those things that are already 5 years old that Sightlines identified for us.
Even though we know that we can fit Valley View into Gildersleeve?
Well, and that right now is Plan B, right? If somebody wants to go back and say, well, let's look at Plan C being close off-ball Valley View, move the kids here, or there's the hard part is that a lot of these things, like what I know you're talking about, which is should Valley View be the one that gets mothballed or closed? The facility study committee talked about all of those, and for various reasons, one in particular being, is the community comfortable with Brownstone becoming truly an elementary school with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in it permanently? Those are conversations that I don't know. The facility study committee, when we looked at Brownstone and said it was great back in the day for a high school, it worked well as a junior high school, it's serviceable as an upper elementary school, are we ready as Portland to make it finally a grade 3, 4, 5 school? And based on where it's picked up, the green space, the bus loops that we need to go in there, the updates to the facility to make what was built as a 1930s high school a 21st century elementary school, that ed specs plan hasn't been written.
We reviewed, honestly, there were 12 people, and Board of Selectmen were on it, teachers were on it, parents were on it. We reviewed over 2 years, there were 8 different scenarios that we could possibly, and each one was looked at thoroughly. It wasn't just cost, it wasn't just let's build a new building. And at the end of it, the committee, after the 2 years of leaving no stone unturned, said it should be, well, it should have been, it would have come out as a one school plan, but one person decided not to vote for it. So it became a 2 school plan, Brownstone and Valley View, with closing Gildersleeve. And, you know, to rehash that, in the last 20 years, this town has looked twice for redoing Valley View and Gildersleeve, redoing Brownstone, and there were too many choices, and people couldn't make up their mind, and so it was diffused. And so here we are again with 3 old schools that, clearly needed work 10 years ago, and it hasn't been done. So I think we have to, I feel like we're climbing a ladder, we're halfway up the ladder. We've got to accept what the facilities study said. If there are questions that are about the plan that's being presented, then we can work on that. But I think to go back and rehash and say, should we do this, and should the Brownstone be, a town facility halfway with Oak Hill in the back and elementary? I mean, we've rehashed all of those things. And the best scenario, because of the land and the building, is to have one campus and one school at this point. And I hope that we can move forward from there. It's a lot to take in, and I think the finances is the big question right now.
Isn't that the frustrating part about this? And you see it in a lot of different things in this town. And the Brainerd Place thing tomorrow is going to be another example where a small group of very loud people try to influence a town decision. And it could be the same thing here. I'll bet you we can find all kinds of different opinions here what we should do with the schools, but we put a professional group of people to analyze all the ideas, kind of pare them down, share them with everybody, show the rationale, and then at some point we need to make a decision based on where we've come to. And I think it's been 5 years worth of work overall that to go back down the ladder and start over again and say, well, let's look at this, let's look at this. And let's just not do anything then, because we can't keep revisiting something. We've got a decision tree that got us to a point, and we just need to put it on a referendum. And I think what's going to happen is those people that aren't vocal but want this, because in the focus groups, parents, teachers, my neighbors all said they wanted this, but they're not coming out to any of the meetings and saying anything. But there's a lot of people that want this. Yeah. And I think we're going to, I hope, but I think we're going to see them come out in November.
How can we guarantee people will come to a consensus this time if this has been posed in the past and it's, as you've said, been diffused?
Because we came up with one plan this time. We didn't have 3 or 4 plans. And there was a very emotional attachment to Brownstone. The teachers, the parents didn't want to close Brownstone in 2011. And they mounted a really good, and one of the teachers who mounted that fight and wanted to keep Brownstone as a 5-6 school, it was on the facility study committee and agreed that one school would be the best way to go. This is a small community, so having a one school solution was one of the conclusions that we came to. It's
a good question, and I mean, I think the way I would answer it is that I think we've already reached a further point than any previous board made it to. But the fact that we are inching towards being able to take action on an ed specs report and working in partnership with the Board of Selectmen to hopefully move a question to referendum. I think there's an acknowledgement, even though we aren't necessarily all seeing eye to eye on what exactly the correct solution is, there's an acknowledgement from everybody that what we're doing, isn't sustainable, that we need to take some action and make some change. So I'm optimistic that we're moving forward.
And I think one of the big differences, I wasn't on the committee in 2010, whatever, but we brought in professional people twice. We did more than one study. We have professional architects that most of their job is redoing schools, working with school districts, knowing the challenges, knowing what they're looking for, writing ed specs. They've lived and done this before, and they've given guidance and kind of almost like not blessed it, but said, hey, we like the way you're going, the direction. This is probably the best direction for what your needs are.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, and it's a great question. I'm going to answer it in a little bit of a roundabout way. We were blessed. One of the silver linings of COVID was COVID relief money. And one of the stated reasons to use COVID relief money was to improve indoor air quality. And boy, do we need to improve our indoor air quality at Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone. It's not good. We spent $80,000 of COVID relief money for fire architects to come in. If we didn't have that COVID relief money, I don't know that we would be here. Let's recognize that. It was that facility study committee, I believe, that motivated, rightfully so, looking back now, our first selectman and our board of selectmen to approve $20,000 for a Great Blue survey company to come in and ask everybody in town, everybody got the postcard in the mail, ask the question. So that was a second level. So we're $100,000 into this, right? And we're at a point now where we have a plan, we have some financials, they're not exact, there's still some questions that need to be answered, we have other committees in town that have been formed by the Board of Selectmen. Things are moving. We're never gonna get 100% consensus. Tell me, there's no way. And the crazy thing is, the only thing we have 100% consensus on is that something must be done, and what we're doing now isn't right. Beyond that, we'll be lucky if we get 55. Like if consensus means everybody, we're not going to get everybody. Right. The goal is get it to a referendum and let the voters speak. Right? We've spoken. I think we've reached a point where we almost owe it to the people. Right? This is what makes democracy something we will die for. Right? Put it in front of people and let them speak. If they speak and say no, thank you for your work, we don't like that idea, we will respect that decision.
And we'll work on a different
solution.
solution.
And we will work on plan B, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But at this point, to Dave, Dave said it well one time, it's like, we gotta move. We've come this far, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time getting to this point. I think we owe it to the voters to let them weigh in. And if the yard signs go up, vote no. They go up and vote no, and if that's how democracy works, I respect democracy, and that's what we will do. We will not do this. If the people come out and support this, well, that's how the system's supposed to work. That's where I'm at. Yep. Like, it's time.
Yeah, it is absolutely time. Our students deserve action on this. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the work. Otherwise, I'm afraid that there are lots of reasons why people may think we shouldn't let the voters have a say, but at this point we've admired this problem. Oh my goodness, I've peeled back every layer of the onion. I am at the core. Like, you're at the core of this, and let democracy do its thing.
I believe we did that with the park. Wasn't it on a referendum? Because a lot of people didn't want it, a lot of people wanted it, but then the town spoke and it passed. And now we've got this beautiful park, and I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about it.
And I would just encourage anybody.
You haven't been listening.
And even I would say that anybody I can't ever tell people how to vote, right? I mean, not that you listen to me, right? What power do I have? But even by voting to approve an ed specs plan, that's not approving this project. Right. That's giving permission for the town to weigh in. And I would say that's the Board of Selectmen too. If you want to, I can see you voting yes on the ed specs plan and going and voting no at the polls, but I almost feel like you owe it to the people. Let the people speak. Let the people have the opportunity to stand up and be heard. Otherwise, we'll continue to admire the problem.
Let's not do that.
No.
Yeah. And again, if there are further, especially very specific questions, we can send them ahead of time to give folks time to make sure they're really prepared to answer them. I think that would be very beneficial.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, just for sake of discussion, if we have the joint meeting and we don't come to a consensus that this is the plan that should be brought to the voters, we're going to miss the June 30th deadline. There wouldn't be any way to get another estimate that would include the work on that Brownstone and Valley View and we,
Not by June 30th.
right, so we would have to engage in that over the next year.
Here's, I think, the
to get
reality.
to the point, so.
If the Board of Education votes no by a majority on the ed specs plan, we're not writing a grant. We are going back to the drawing board. If the Board of Selectmen votes no on a referendum question, we're not writing the grant.
Right.
We need those two things
Independently,
independently.
Right, no, they're two different
That's
tracks,
Appendix
right.
A and Appendix B. They won't
Right.
even look at our grant without those.
Right.
What that might mean is that we're gonna spend another year talking about this and get back at it again next June 30th. But there's no, the June 30th, it's a yearly.
Right, it's the annual piece, yeah, right, so we would just be
And the difference
postponing it
is-
for a year.
Right.
The difference is going forward that because it's a national election, we can have a referendum in November. If we wait until next spring, we have to have a referendum next spring or
Correct.
the following year. in
Right.
November.
That's a good point.
So that
Oh,
was the
so it
reason
wouldn't-
for this.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily have to go until
Right.
next November.
Right.
It could be whenever it gets
We could have a
scheduled.
spring referendum.
Right.
Correct.
2025.
We have like we had on the park.
It's only because of this, we learned, because of the federal election, that you can do it in reverse. You can apply
hold on.
without having an
That's
approved
how it's
referendum.
technically-
Only
Hold on
for the
one second.
federal election.
I'm sorry, I kind of
Yes,
lost the
they-
thread.
Yeah, I know, we did
I don't know what the.
So let's finish this and then I will go over here, but let's finish this.
So I think this is really important information to present to voters, to know the timelines and what will happen if things don't go as perfectly as what we're anticipating. You know, because it seems to me we're taking the path of least resistance.
Oh, I would push back on that a little bit. This has taken a tremendous amount of work from a lot of different people beyond just the board to push us to this point. And I would say there's been a lot of resistance, but we've reached this point. We kind of are on a forward trajectory. What I would say about pushing it off by a year is that what we know from watching the numbers based on the Sightlines report going back 4 years, what we know is that every year we wait on this, the project gets, not exponentially, but it gets significantly more expensive. And the other thing that we do know over the last several years is that every year our reimbursement rate from the state goes down a little bit.
So those
And
are
so
two
those are two
really
things that are important to weigh
information, yeah.
when we think about the idea of pushing this off by a year.
And the other piece I would just mention,
Yeah.
be remiss if I didn't, is Friar's been with us 2 years. Right? We
Yeah.
paid them $80,000.
Yep.
They've done a lot for us. We really have to go back and look at their contract to determine if we would need to pay them more or if they would keep going. I mean, they signed up for pre-referendum services. I don't know if that was an open-ended, if you do it in 3 years, we'll still be
Yeah,
with
does it
you.
end come November?
But
If it's
as you can see from these reports and the presentations, and as we know, we've gotten our money's worth out of these folks.
Yeah.
Right.
With
So
this-
just, I wanted to finish, because I never really
Yeah, sure.
got to the end of my question. So if we don't come to an agreement between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed, and we missed the June 25th deadline, and we move forward with developing a plan that we do think will get the approval of both boards and can be brought, we have to wait at least until June of next year to apply for the grant again, or can you apply in the interim? Like
Two answers to that. And it's like everything, I feel bad saying this, it depends.
Right.
If we can't come to consensus on one school, if the answer is keep 3 schools, we're not gonna get a lot in reimbursement. Right. That a lot, what we've learned from Friar is considered deferred maintenance on you. Right, there is some for roofs, and Stephanie will help us, and ADA compliance, and,
Right, there's a little
some
bit.
things, but it's very small.
Okay.
So at that point, you're gonna be asking the taxpayers to help foot that bill, but there's not gonna be a lot of reimbursement. I don't even know what the grant application process for that is.
It wouldn't be that because we're not asking for
15%.
Right.
We're getting like $2 million for a roof.
Well, I'm thinking about it, if the, things were to turn to such an extent that it became more of a consensus that 2 schools was an acceptable plan. Not just that we do all the capital improvement for all 3 schools, but because to me, that's where the thing, I think that's where most people are in the community, is either we do we close 2 schools and kind of roll the dice and see what happens with those 2 facilities, or do we close just 1 school and do, so if that were the case, I'm just trying to figure out, is it only a year from this November that we could go to the ballot on that, or we can hold the referendum interim?
Here's the answer to that. I think I follow your question.
Yeah.
Before the Great Blue Survey, right, I went and wrote 5 ed specs. Remember, I wrote all of the different configurations because we didn't have a solution.
Right.
Great Blue Survey happened, and my marching orders became pre-K 5 school based on that. That was pretty clear. That ed specs was refined, made into like a second draft, shared with Fryer, shared with Gilbane, shared with Downs. All of the work was done to get us to the.
Right.
But timeline-wise,
But the one school was really just a.
Right.
It wasn't like an overwhelming majority. It was 900 plus people who had an opinion, which is great, and it was helpful, but it was, it kind of squeaked by.
No doubt. I mean, there's no way I would be able to pull back out the ed specs plan for a pre-K 3 Valley View, a 4, 5, 6 Gildersleeve, get that to Fryer, have them work with Gilbane and Downs to work up a whole new set of numbers for how much on Valley View, how much on Brownstone.
By this June 30th.
By this June 30th.
No, certainly not.
So can I jump in? Yeah, Tim, the timeline is, yes. Next, the grant application is due at the end of June. Then the state considers all of them, and districts start getting notified through the summer and into the fall about the success, whether their application is intact. We would not be able to have a November referendum as part of that application. The referendum would have to take place ahead of the application being due. So there would have to be a separate referendum that would be held in the spring.
Okay,
the application,
so it would be like a spring.
The application would still be due end of June, and the state wouldn't consider it any earlier than that.
Okay.
I think that was.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. Is we wouldn't have to wait until November 25 to do it. We could do it in the spring of.
We couldn't.
I'm sorry, spring. Well, we could.
No, we could.
Oh,
we couldn't apply next June and have the referendum in November. We'd have to have an approved referendum, like the vote would have to take place before the grant is submitted in June.
Right.
And so we'd have to have approval from the town to submit that application.
Correct.
And why is that?
It's only reversed on the federal election.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They make an exception once every 4 years, knowing that some municipalities, a lot of municipalities want to take advantage of the higher turnout.
Because I have to let them know literally like 2 days after the vote, as if it was a yay or a nay, and then if they move forward with it. Because they let us know by mid-December if we get approved.
Okay.
So it's reversed once every 4 years. This is it.
Okay. So it's like Groundhog Day.
And most other times you do it around your budget referendum. You put a question on your referendum.
Okay. Thank you.
Did that?
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I think we got to it.
Yes.
Was there another question over here?
No, that was
your question too. Look at us.
And in a way, it's answered my question too about what potentially a plan B would be, or where, in the timeline, where it lands.
It really would push us out a full year.
Yeah.
Because it's based on the state grant cycle, which is an annual thing. Yeah.
Then you get on a build list, hopefully.
Right.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, of course. Please don't apologize.
Did you get your question answered, young man?
Yeah.
Good. Are there additional questions for this evening? Does everyone feel comfortable holding the rest of conversation around this for our May 14th joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen?
I know I do.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to suggest we leave it there and keep it moving. Good? Okay. All right. We're going to...
We have students here, and it's getting late, and I'm being reminded that they have homework and stuff.
Okay. So... would everyone feel comfortable taking our new business item B, last day of school request from Student Senate, and moving it up to now, ahead of Stephanie's report for us? Is everyone comfortable making that shift? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's probably not proper, but I don't want to keep you all here any longer. All right, then let's do that. let's zip down to our last day of school request from our student senate.
I don't know if any of them have AP exams tomorrow or something, but we definitely want to make sure they do. Oh, okay.
Did you wanna introduce this?
Okay, I'll let you. We want to. Oh, actually, no. We should have our board reps introduce this because
Great.
they're here because of our board reps.
That's right.
This is the type of leadership we want out of our board reps. So, Pete and Lee, do you want to kick us off? You made the request last time.
Yeah, so this is our student senate who's here to present their request to move the last day of school from June 17th up to June 14th, making the last day of school a teacher professional development day.
Thank you.
This is our first member.
All right.
So, hello board members, we represent the Portland High School Student Senate and would like to thank you all for being here, taking time out of your day to listen to our proposal. I am Nico Oliva, a member of the Student Senate, joined by the rest of the five over here. The five of us are members of the class of 2025 Portland High School Student Senate and are here to propose a change in the school calendar. Before I begin, I would first like to thank Mrs. Lawson and especially Ms. Stotler for helping us throughout this whole process. It's been a huge help overall. So as of now, our last day of school is a half day on Monday, June 14th. 17th, my bad. Monday, June 17th. We are proposing to move the last day of school for students to Friday, June 14th. In doing so, this last day on Friday would be a full day rather than a traditional half day on the last day of school. Teachers would still come in on Monday for a teacher day to have time to finalize grades and clean up their rooms. For students, their last day would just be Friday. As of right now, the state of Connecticut only requires that we have 180 school days. Right now, our town has 181 school days, one more than required. Getting rid of this last day for students would still abide by the state of Connecticut regulations. Switch.
Hello board members, I'm Owen McGinley of the Student Senate. We have looked at neighboring towns in Middlesex County, along with towns in our DURG, to see how many days of school they have. We have found that it is very common for other schools to only have 180 days of school. East Hampton, Middletown, Coggeshall, Valley Regional, and Haddam-Killingworth are all schools in our region that have a 180-day school year. Our DURG consists of towns in the state that are similar to Portland in population, enrollment size, and budget. Nearly a dozen towns in our DURG also have a 180-day school year.
Hello board members, I am Nathan Green, Vice President of the Class of 2025 and a member of the Student Senate. We'd like to note that students appreciate that the Portland Board of Education wants more for the students by including an extra day compared to other districts. However, the last day of school now lands on a Monday, which is also a half day. After speaking to many students, many of them are already planning on not attending. If the last day is Monday, then the attendance will be very low. Teachers will still have to teach a lesson that day, when instead they can be putting that time to much better use.
Hello, I'm Michael Rambros. I'm a member of the Student Senate, and I am a junior in Portland High School. PHS no longer gives final exams. Therefore, many classes and many teachers give authentic and hands-on skill-based projects. These take time to correct. If a teacher's contract officially ends at 2:45 on Monday, giving teachers the day on Monday is an effective and prudent use of time, and allows teachers to teach and work with students up to the last day. The extra day allows students who are behind or sick to make up work while giving teachers the time to correct it. Along with grading, having this extra day gives teachers time to clean out their rooms and prepare for the summer. Normally, when the clock hits 2:45, on the last day, teachers have no time to clean out their rooms until they come back in August. After speaking with Ms. Stotler, it was conveyed to us that having extra time would be very helpful. Teachers get a half day at the beginning of the year to set up a room, so it would be prudent for there to be one at the end of the year. Paras can support teachers with prepping IEPs, collection of books, computers, and closing the media center.
Good evening, board members. I'm Amelia Eckert. I'm
a senator for the class of 2025. Having this last day on Friday would be effective for cost saving as well. This would allow custodians to start summer cleaning out and clean out lockers earlier than normal on Friday rather than the Monday. Also, buses wouldn't have to run on Monday, being a cost saving for the district as a whole. We would like to add that this would not be a precedent setting, and therefore the contract with teachers can go back to what it typically is. Additionally, the schools will be able to save money because lunch and breakfast will not be served if there is no school on that Monday. The cost of the food, along with the labor to prepare it, will not be necessary. Though we aren't typically confident about the statement that we made about the financial, we would just like for you to take in consideration the minimization of the labor of our lovely cafeteria workers and our hardworking custodians. And we would additionally like to show you a compilation of interviews of PHS students.
I'm here with Raymond Lynn, student at Portland High School. Raymond, do you plan on coming to school the last day on Monday?
No.
If that last day from Monday got moved to Friday, how would you feel?
I mean, I'd feel a lot better and it'd be a lot less stressful for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
Zach Dixon, student athlete at Portland High School. Zach, do you plan on attending school Monday last day?
Definitely.
How would you feel if that Monday last day got moved to Friday?
It's feel like it would take off a lot of stress from me and other fellow students like me, I just feel like it's unnecessary and unneeded, outdated.
Here today with Mateo Brousseau, a student at PHS and a handsome genius. So I have one simple question for you. I know you've heard about the recent issue of the last day of school and it being a Monday. And I just want to ask you, how do you feel if, the student senate's working to get the last day of school moved to that Friday? How would you feel about this cause? What are your thoughts? How would it impact your life?
If this last day of school got moved, I'd cry for 72 hours straight. And that's the God honest truth. I've been dreaming about this since the day I was born, probably. And this would impact my life greatly. I'd be able to experience the last day of school with my friends on a solid Friday, a nice Friday afternoon. It makes me emotional thinking about it, and I really need this to happen. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
I'm here with Tommy Hedrick, student athlete at PHS. Tommy, how would you feel if the last day of school got moved from that Monday to the Friday? How would it impact your life?
I feel like it would make a big difference, and not just my life, but every other student here at PHS's life. I feel like school ending on a Monday is just not preferable for anyone, even teachers. You get that Saturday and Sunday off, it's going to feel like summer. Then you got to come back for that 1.5 day.
Oh.
So 1.5 day.
God.
I mean, Friday. Friday's Friday. That's the last day of the week. Should be the last day of school.
I appreciate it. I'm here with Raymond Lynn, student.
So that concludes our presentation. Thank you for time and consideration. If you have any questions, if you're answering them, I guess.
I got a question. So you started off with there was going to be a lot of absences on Monday. So what's to prevent those same absences being on a Friday? Because nobody wants to come to school on the last day of school on a Friday. Let's just skip it.
I don't know. I just know the people I've talked to, they just the Monday being a half day, and the people a lot of people are going on vacation that week too, I know. So I feel like speaking personally, I think a lot of my friends and people I know will come to school on that Friday, just finish out the week and everything. But they have to come back Monday just for a half day, people just find it useless. And I think overall it would generally be more people who come to that Friday than Monday. But I don't know, so I'll prove that.
Are you proposing this for all grades from kindergarten? I mean, are all the schools ending on Monday? Is this including 3rd graders, 4th graders, or is it just the high school, juniors, the sophomores? Because we only saw students speaking. What about parents? How does this impact parents who have to go to work on that Monday? And have you thought about any impacts to parents?
A little bit. Ms. Stowell, what we do to the high school or what district? Just the secondary schools. And originally that Monday wasn't a scheduled day. It got added because of weather and stuff like that. So we just I think we want to do it for secondary schools, so.
And if it's only suggested for secondary schools, where's the equity with educators in the other schools?
And buses.
I don't really understand that.
What?
Yeah.
Well, it was the other question I had too, is like, does someone actually look at numbers, like, you're saying there's projected savings, but was there an official who looked at that and said, yes, this in fact
Bus,
will
like the bus
accumulate
company,
savings?
did they actually say you're gonna save money?
So a couple of things. First, to your point about the equity issue, it would create, when we think about equity, we think about giving people what they need to be successful. The parallel scenario, granted for different reasons, was when the elementary schools were not able to be in session in the afternoons due to the extreme heat. And clearly it was fine for us to be here. I think the case that the students are making is that it really won't be a productive educational environment for anybody on Monday morning. And so that is why they are coming forward to propose this. As far as the cost savings, I'm glad you brought that up, Tim, because it was some of the feedback that I gave the kids, is that some of our costs are contracted.
Right.
And likely those contracts aren't going to change. I think what they're advocating for is a softer start to the summer, and they want to propose that to the board, and I applaud and support their efforts.
And to your understanding, is there any state standard that we would be violating by removing that day?
No, the state law is 180 days.
Right, well, that slide kind of jumped quickly there. There was a slide that showed that we were...
State statute's 180 school days.
Right, no, I understand that. So why did we have 181 to begin with? I don't understand that.
It's been our practice with our calendars for many years to have 181 days. I was curious about whether that's a reflection on the fact that we build several 2-hour delays into the school year. Is that part of why we schedule 181 days instead of 180?
Well, we could always add on
It's
days.
been like 181 for the last 25 years. I can't remember when it was.
I think Charles has a...
It's something we negotiate part of our contracts with our bargaining units.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Cromwell does 183.
Oh.
Well, maybe we should do that.
Well,
All in favor?
What were you going to say?
yeah, Kim, I was gonna, does that include your teacher's PD days? You had 187?
183 student days,
Student days.
187 teacher days.
Teacher days, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
But it's all part of what's negotiated. Yeah.
Right, okay, that's what
I think somebody mentioned about days having to be missed because of heat. Does that happen at this school as well?
No, typically, because we're air conditioned.
Okay.
Typically, when the elementary schools have had to close early, we stay in session.
Very good. So there's no possibility that this school closes for 2 days and we've said you can leave on Friday and now we're down to 178
There
days.
is a possibility, Angela. There is always a possibility that there could be some wacky weather. I mean, we've experienced it in the form of heat waves that have meant dismissing early at the elementary level. But there's always the possibility of some extreme weather, flood or whatever, that would massive power outages that would result in.
And what that
losing a
would do
day.
is extend the school year. So if we had a out of the blue May snowstorm and we were closed for 3 days, the last day of school would be pushed out.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to just express appreciation for this process and for our students making a really great case for making a change to the calendar. And I really appreciate that the Student Senate brought this concern to our Board of Ed representatives and that you all felt comfortable bringing it to the board. I just think that's wonderful, and I'm really grateful that this happened. So just thank you, and kudos to all of you for standing up.
Do we have a decision today?
Well, I don't know.
Should we vote on it?
I have some reservations. Charles, do you want to weigh in about what this would look like? Because I'm hearing now that you're only proposing this at the secondary school level. I thought initially this proposal was a pre-K 12 proposal, so this is news to me right now that you're just making this proposal for the secondary schools. So I guess I'm curious what the greater impact would be, and you guys have asked some of these questions about the impact on teachers if we if we aren't open for students on Monday here, but we are at the elementary level. What would the impact be on teacher contracts, on families? What would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, look, I to be completely honest, certainly that K-6 isn't in the mix. Right. You know, I thought maybe this was a K-12 proposal. You know, I know a lot of families, obviously we learned from the pandemic, count on our schools for care, right? Parents have to work. We can't pull the people plan vacations and, you know, grandma schedules and daycare and that. You know, that K-6 is not a part of it, you know, makes me feel a little bit better about it. I will say though, I'm wondering how our Brownstone 5 and 6 students are going to feel about their older sibling. Hey, they get the day off.
Right.
Why am I here in a hot Brownstone building when they could be, you know, in the air-conditioned night school? But I haven't had any conversations with our K-6 faculty, staff, students, parents about how they would perceive this if there's a question about equity. And I also haven't had a discussion with our Teachers Association or our teachers about whether that would be a labor action or, you know, a concern amongst our unions about whether teachers are being treated differently. Without question, we did treat teachers differently during the heat wave, but those are emergency situations. This would be a planned board action that potentially could be subject to scrutiny through any number of our bargaining units, paras, secretaries. So, you know, look, I think that there would need to be some more due diligence about what the potential labor actions might be if this were done not as an emergency, but as a request. And I'm not saying that should be a hard no, but I have not done that level of discussion or homework with any of the bargaining units, teachers included.
And personally, I think you have enough on your plate with all that we've discussed right now to add this to your workload. I mean, you have a lot going on. How do you feel about adding this to your workload?
Here's what I would say. I am a servant of the board. If there is a strong consensus on the board that, Charles, we would like you to go talk to all of the bargaining units and get their input and determine if we're going to be dealing with grievances because of this decision, I'll do it. Without question, I'm a little busy, especially this time of year, but if that's what the board wants, I'm your servant. Otherwise, if the board is feeling, we love the student advocacy, you know, we love the student input at this point, you know, it's getting late in the year to have to do the level of negotiations and backstage work and surveying and, you know, fully vetting this in a way that will keep us out of hot water or policy committee process hearings or whatever we would have to do with it if it were agreements that were submitted and denied at the lowest level would end up in your lap. There's no saying, no good deed goes unpunished.
I think we should look into it because I think they make a very compelling, graduation is on the 13th and then the last day of school could be the 14th, as long as you guys all promise to show up. And no absent, but I think we should look a little further into it. I think they make a very compelling argument for the last day of school to be on the 14th. And you said it would be a full day of school.
What are other folks' feelings about this?
I think it's wonderful that you guys came forward and you're making the case for yourselves. I don't think that should obligate us to direct Charles to take valuable administrative time and sink it into this. And I just feel like that's, like Angela said, there's a lot on his plate, and I don't think it's necessary to do that. But nothing against the students, and you know, students are gonna show up on Monday or they're not, and we already know exactly. Maybe you guys that aren't gonna show, and there's no disciplinary impact on that for them, and you know, I think this has been a good activity on their part, and I respect them coming forward, but yeah.
I agree with Tim, and then following on that, what would be the appropriate time of year for this kind of a proposal? Because I think if you want to come back next year and make this proposal, May is late to do that, but what would be the appropriate time to consider something like this?
That's really complicated because we don't know when the snow is going to stop flying.
It could be the last one.
We've had snowstorms in late April. It's just the way it worked out this year, that Monday, that's where it got pushed to. It's kind of a bummer. The only thing we have the ability to do is, and we do, set the graduation date and absolve the seniors from the 180-day requirement.
Right.
But everybody else, we have to hit that 180-day, which they're right, would be that Friday. But per our bargaining units, it's 181. That's what the board's negotiated.
Yeah, for a long time.
Right.
Well, how are you two feeling?
Yeah, I feel like it's late in the year to try to manage all of this, and Teacher Appreciation Week, we need to be equitable. Like for me, that's the big thing. I think it would be great if we could give all teachers that Monday to have that time for doing the end of year stuff, but if it can't be across the board, then I'm very hesitant.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, what Tim said. It's just with so much on Charles' plate. It's a quick phone call, make a decision, but I think he's going to be having set up meetings and calls and take away from some real tough priorities, especially given what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm feeling like as we're in the middle of beginning to deal with our contract negotiations, this next cycle with our 6 bargaining units, that I think this muddies the waters at this point. So I think I'm in agreement with the rest of the board. Sorry, Meg,
okay.
but I do
No,
have
that's okay.
I do have such gratitude to you all for making your case and for coming and bringing this to the board, and maybe that this is something that we will revisit in the future, the 180 versus 181 days. I think we've been a 181-day district by tradition and by contract negotiation for a very long time. So maybe that's something that we will reconsider in the future.
And then the last thing, I just want to add for you gentlemen and for you guys, this is how the process is supposed to work. You guys have representatives on the board. If ever you're making requests of this or any other nature, right, a request through your board representatives to add it to the agenda, this is how the system is designed, right? And as far as that Monday of school, I hope you come, get some yearbooks signed. It sounds like some people have made their decisions otherwise.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys can go home and get some rest now.
Do your homework.
All right. So from that item, we are going to jump back up to communications and updates, and we were on item B. This is our report from Stephanie.
So I apologize. I realize as I'm looking at my document that my financial report for January 1st to December 31st, 2022 is not accurate. I started typing it, I use a template, so I don't want to reinvent the wheel every time. I changed the body of it, but then I did not change the top. So I should say March 31st, 2024. Like I said, because I didn't provide it last month, I'm providing it this month for you, along with, I know it's not on the agenda, but just the authorized spending report with the new revenue streams at the bottom, how I started doing last time. So the document with the quarterly is through March, and then the other one is through April. We're kind of in the same spot as we were a month ago. At this late in the game, I don't foresee us making too much ground on making up the deficit, because most of the contracts are paid out. The transportation, all the outplacements are still where they are. So now it's just going to be closing out the POs and seeing what we can get from what's left on what's currently out there. And in all honesty, with spring coming up and the air conditioning systems being turned on, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we don't run into more expenses. Well, no, if anything, when they turn the systems on, that...
You're worried about equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we have Fund 11, if God forbid something crazy happened, but we're kind of just moving along at the same, nothing exuberant as of right now, but I don't see anything coming off either that would make up the deficit, like how I have in the past, where I'm like, oh, I think we'll be getting closer, but I don't think we are this time, unfortunately. And if anybody has any questions about what I wrote or any of the figures, numbers, I updated with the new excess cost number, because I hadn't done that last time. So that reflects the new reimbursement that we're getting.
And you said that was about 69%, right?
Yeah.
It's lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 70, what did I have? So it was 70.46 and it's down to 69.06. I mean, that almost less than half of
It's outrageous.
percent.
It's just outrageous. It's outrageous that they did that to us. At all the districts. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, no, I just saw they're pouring more money into select districts, but we weren't on the list.
It's unconscionable.
So the deficit projected at this point is 266 plus
Give or
thousand,
take.
give or take.
Hopefully not
So
less.
For that,
Hopefully less.
well, just in change.
Yeah.
But and we'd have to go to the town for that money at the end of the year in order to balance that out.
Yeah.
So I've been working closely with Tom, as we're getting closer to see what the next action would be.
And the anticipated reimbursement from Medicaid and Hartford and Waterbury, those, will you remind me, Stephanie, those, how close to accurate do you expect those numbers to be, and when would we have
So
more
I
accurate
actually got
numbers?
the Waterbury check today, so that's now received.
Okay.
So that's what we billed them and that's what they paid. Hartford, I sent the bill probably 2 weeks ago because we did have a more recent person that needed assistance, so they needed a para. So I had to send them an updated bill. So hopefully, I keep in touch with them now because it's getting towards the end of the year and everybody's got to close their books out on the 30th.
Right.
But I've been here almost 6 years now, and we've gotten what we've billed every time.
Okay.
The only time they ever pushed back once was we built transportation in, which we weren't supposed to do that. But other than that, it's always been, I have a very detailed document with all the services, who gets what.
So you expect that number there for the Hartford reimbursement is what we will receive from Hartford?
Yep. Medicaid is the more fluid one, I would say. And actually, where the anticipated is, I just got our audit from the 2022-2023 school year report that I put in. So every June 30th, I have to do the cost report for the previous year's Medicaid. So I just got the analysis of that, and we are actually due back $10,810. So that means the state did not reimburse us what we should have been. So that was a nice, there's some years where we've had to pay. Again, being 5 years, we've had to pay 1 year. So that, and they guarantee that we can include that in our June 30th. So that's not included in this document because I just got that letter on Friday.
That 10,000 reimbursement is not in here?
No, so that where it says anticipated 14, I'm gonna add another 10,000 onto that.
Okay.
It's like 10,400 and something dollars, give or take. And that we will get this year. The actual is what we've actually received already. And I just base what's left off of, because as the school year closes out, the teachers and everybody, the OTs, PTs, everybody's putting their hours in, they're putting everything in, and so we usually get larger sums of money towards the end of the year because Dawn's good with letting everybody know, make sure you get all of your stuff in before you leave for the year.
Updated on their charting.
Yeah.
What is excess cost?
Excess cost is the piece when we were talking, I think I talked a little bit about it on your first meeting, and then when we met, that's the reimbursement that we get from the state for the special ed costs over our net cost expenditure per pupil times 4.5. So we have a number that we have to reduce off of our expenses that they then reimburse a percentage of it, which is where we keep talking about. Originally, when I first started, we were getting 88% reimbursement back, which was fantastic. But because the needs have grown so significantly for all districts, they've been trying to make it equitable for everybody. But in turn, then it reduces everybody's reimbursement. But everybody needs more, and there's not enough money to go around. So originally, in the beginning of the year, we were getting $666,020. They usually wait for the first submission on December 1st to see the needs, and then they take it and they have to disperse it across the needs. And that's how we got reduced to 69.06%. down to 587, 249. They're all state calculations that we have no control over. All we can do is input our information and just wait.
And why is it labeled excess cost? I mean, it doesn't.
That's just
That's what it's called.
That's just what it's called.
So is the excess the program? Is that like?
No, it's cost beyond the normal cost.
Okay.
So it's additional cost that
They give us a
for
cap.
services you have to provide
Okay.
to meet
Right.
the needs of the student per their
Okay.
IEP.
So they assign a certain amount that your district is responsible for
Okay.
every student. So any of our students, we are responsible for somewhere around $90,000. Beyond that, because many of these outplacements cost
Even more.
significantly beyond
Yeah.
that. Beyond that, in excess of the 90,000,
Very good.
approximately,
Wasn't sure how
they
got that
reimburse a
name.
percentage
Thank
of
you.
that. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
and it's 20% less than it used to be.
So I'm just curious on the, this is through end of Q3, I think, 11/015 extracurricular salaries.
Mhm.
Is that significantly lower now than it was on March 31st?
So extracurriculars will be all the stipends that we pay out to the teachers,
Okay.
and so that will be in this payroll coming up.
Okay.
So when I do the next report, that'll be, we just don't encumber salaries in
Yeah.
the system.
Okay.
And the same thing with the coaching too, the
Yeah.
spring sports get paid.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions?
Other specific questions about the finance report? No, I mean, it's been a pretty steady picture for several months now, and I continue to be impressed, Stephanie, with just how accurate your projections are in terms of.
And you look at the numbers every single day.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah, I
Multiple
know.
times a day. And that's why when I'm looking at this, I said, that's why I'm not an English major. That's why I'm a math major. I don't spell check.
Yeah.
So Charles, the grand total, that 23,547, is that what
That's our allotted budget.
Right, and is that what we're about asking in this new year's budget? or
5.08% more.
More than this?
Yep.
That's where I was going. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, folks?
I am just curious, I'm wondering about, I know you had in the write-up here about temporary payroll from ESY expenses last year. We're at a deficit. Do you have any idea about this year's
We
ESY?
upped it.
So
We
we're
upped it.
in a better spot?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. If there aren't any other specific questions, I guess we'll move on.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephanie.
Something's changed.
All right. Dawn, our Director of Student Services, is here this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dawn.
This is, Michelle has it, she's gonna send it out after tonight. So, but then just a paper copy?
Oh, let's see, Stephanie, thanks.
The top of the chart is just our monthly, just as I report to you, every time I report, I just add in the numbers. And it's nice to look at the trend. Earlier in the evening, Dr. Britton spoke about how our student enrollment was stable, and that's the best way I can describe our student services numbers right now across the board. They're very stable. And I will say, looking back on the last 4 years, from COVID on, this is the first year that we've remained really stable throughout the whole year. We had little bits of spikes, but nothing compared to what we've had in the previous 4 years. So that right there is reassuring for me. The other thing is our, like I said, our special ed numbers are stable. Our outplacement is back down, and we still are working on a couple of students that will be coming back before the end of the school year. So it won't have a great impact upon what's happening with this year's budget where we're talking, but for next year, it's going to put us in a good place to start July 1. And that will be updated in my June report. So that should come down to about 18 or 19. Our special programs, our numbers of students in special programs, remember those are the small special ed programs within each of the schools for either mental health or for life skills. That number is pretty stable again at 66 across all 12 grades. We have 4 students in magnet schools that we pay for their special education costs. That has remained pretty steady. Our identification, I just put these are the kids that are up at bat, and they may identify or they may not identify. It depends on how their evaluation process and the special ed process goes. But those numbers did peak up, and I really I give the credit to our survey teams, because we're looking at kids. We've got a lot of a lot of referrals, but we're not coming out to a lot of identifications. So that's really nice. Our 504 students are up a little bit still, and I had told you back in February we had a jump, and it was really just a recalculation. We were looking at numbers in CT SEDS, and we realized that the 114 that we had in February was more accurate than the 96 we had in January. It was just a matter of students being reported through the system that we use, which is the CT SEDS platform. So the 114 and 119 that we have right now, that's pretty accurate. And one of the things, when I looked at some of those numbers that have jumped up, these are students that in the past might have been in special ed, like right after COVID, for socially emotional needs and a therapeutic type of programming need, but now we're really just benefiting from the ability to have accommodations and modifications in their gen ed programming. So that makes me really happy too, because we're being able to meet kids' needs before they have to go into the special ed system. So I'm, while it's up a little bit, I'm not as worried. These are kids that are still going to all their gen ed classes and have some accommodations of counseling or maybe some extra time on tests or certain accommodations to help them with anxiety or depression types of areas. That's predominantly where our students are in that range. And then multilingual students are ML students. Those students have gone up a little bit. Remember, last month I spoke about how we had a few kids that dropped off because they passed the last links, they met mastery, and they dropped off. But as in all good Portland fashion, where we have an opening, we have students that move in, and we had several students move in and a couple of families that are newcomers. So Julie is working with those families and those students. Just a couple, I don't have a lot to report tonight, just a couple of updates for you. Our staffing updates, we are holding strong. We still have that one opening at the Gildersleeve Brownstone level. Sarah McLaughlin is filling it partway as a BCBA/special ed teacher, but we also have incredible case managers that are just jumping in and picking up other students so that we can make sure that program runs steadily, but is not, even though we don't have a qualified teacher in there. So those students are being taught by other case managers. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the paras, because the paras that work with our students, remember, these are some of our most neediest students when it comes to developmental delays or cognitive disabilities. They're the most neediest, and they've got paras that make sure their programs just keep running in lockstep as they go on. So our teams are making up for where we have lacking in staffing. We are continuing to monitor our opportunities to interview new staff and work to have that position filled with the springtime hiring. So once again, that's where we are, and we've had a really busy year with vacancies in special ed. From August until now, we have had at least one vacancy amongst all 5 buildings throughout the year. We would fill one. It's kind of like, that dike that's starting to show a few leaks. We fill one hole and then something else would open up. But every time our staff has worked really hard to make sure that we have, that the kids' services don't get interrupted because of that. People are just taking on extra, whether it's writing reports, evaluating, or direct instruction. So I'm happy to see that wrap up. We've had a couple of good candidates for our speech language position that up till now has been handled by contracting to highly qualified SLPs that are contractors. but we may have a candidate in place so that we are filling that with our own staff member for the fall.
That would be great news.
And I just remember, I want to remind everybody, right now we have 2 SLPs that are each working 3 days a week, so it's coming out to a little bit more. So there could still be some need for contracting in the fall, even if we are able to attract and hire that SLP that comes to work for us as a district. Last month when I gave my report, I spoke a little bit about the mental health team working with the admin team to look at chronic absenteeism. And the mental health team continues to work on that. We had hoped to trial run our new chronic absenteeism committee, a district level committee that would come out of central office. We started putting together the framework, had hoped to model it or run a trial run in April, but it really just became so busy. It was going to be too much on all of the staff to get that done. But we're working on the framework for rollout in the fall, so it's exciting to see that take place. And then I just wanted to quickly give you an overview of what happens to the student with special education needs when SBAC rolls around. And it's not just the Smarter Balance, it's also when the students have to take the CAPT, the school day CAPT as part of their mastery testing. But right now, all the elementary schools are knee-deep in SBAC testing. And everybody takes the SBAC. It doesn't matter if you have an IEP or not. It doesn't matter if you're an English learner or not. Everybody has to take the standardized testing. But what happens now to even the playing field up, we talk about people getting what they need to be successful. That's the equity piece. The accommodations that come into play that are part of a student's individual education plan or their Section 504 plan, or even their plan as a multilingual learner. Those accommodations are really, really important. And those accommodations might be things such as extended time on a time test, or an alternate setting for somebody that needs to, that has too much anxiety for them to sit in a large classroom and everybody clicking away on their computers to do the Smarter Balance. So they might go to a resource room where it's quieter with a qualified adult. All of those are different examples of accommodations. Something as simple as a multiplication chart. Very low tech, but a multiplication chart to help those students that in math really haven't been able to master their multiplication tables, but are able to do higher level math functions. Giving them that support as part of their IEP is able to help them meet with success. And the rule from the state is we have to make sure these are accommodations that the student's using every day in their teaching and learning. So when a student is having an accommodation every day in their classroom to use voice to text from Google Read Write, then that's also something they should be able to have in their mastery testing platform. And the nice thing with everything being online now is when they log in, the staff behind the scenes make sure all that information is fed up to the state through the TIDE, it's called the TIDE platform. Then when a student logs in, all of their accommodations are right there for them, preloaded. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of what that means for our students with special needs. And then there's a very small percentage of our students here in the district. It's a very number, it's less than 1% of the population is allowed to what we call the Connecticut Alternative Assessment, the CTAA. And we do have a very small number of those students, and they're in the middle of taking that assessment right now. They work on that with their case managers to make sure that they have access to some form of mastery testing, but by nature of their curriculum and their instructional style, they're not receiving regular instruction like their peers. So that concludes my report tonight. Any questions?
You have one more, Dawn?
Sure.
One more report?
What's that?
One more report in June?
June.
Or is it
June.
One more in June.
One more in June. Yeah. We'll wrap it up. And maybe by then I'll make that report with my successor as well. Who knows? So, but yeah, second to last.
All right.
All right.
Any questions for Dawn?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move along to new business, and item A is a first reading of a new Board of Education. Oh, it's not a new. It's a revision of a current Board of Ed policy, Policy 6146, on graduation requirements. And I believe Ms. Lawson is here to walk us through this.
Good evening. Thank you. I'd like to share with the board sort of the process that we've taken to be before you tonight. It seems like almost every year the state of Connecticut comes out with proposed changes to the Board of Education. To graduation requirements for boards of education to consider. The last major overhaul was in 2014. That was the high school reform legislation. This year we've received some updates of changes that are being made at the legislative level, some of which districts must consider and some of which districts may consider. What I do when I get those updates is I always crosswalk it against our current graduation requirements. And then I begin an internal process to see how we would respond to them. So we brought the graduation legislation changes to the faculty. We engaged our team leaders, who are our teacher leaders, to work with their individual departments. And we always engage our school counselors to help us look through the scheduling lens of feasibility. So the changes and the proposals that I'm bringing before you are a combination of teacher-determined recommendations for the consideration of the board and also legislation that we don't have a whole lot of control over. After that process, and I had a proposal ready to go, we came before the curriculum subcommittee. So some of you have heard this chat before. And then most recently before the policy subcommittee. This policy revision looks a little different than some other policies that you may have considered in that it's a complete rewrite. So it's not a strike through update of an existing policy. We started with the model graduation policy from CABE. And then we adjusted it. So that's the document that you'll see in front of you, and I can speak to any of the changes that have been made. With the next slide, there were 3 pieces of relevant changes for us to consider with the new guidelines from the state of Connecticut. The first one is that they are requiring, beginning with the class of 2027, financial literacy half credit for all students. So those are our current freshmen. The other thing that they have changed legislatively, it used to be that a 1-credit mastery-based diploma assessment was mandated by the state. That was our capstone. That has now become a flexibility from the state. And the third piece was the state reiterated their position that all students need to take 1 year of a world language. In 2014, that was an addition. There did not used to be a graduation requirement for world language. They added a 1-year requirement at that time. We as Portland went to 2 years as a requirement with the rationale thinking that would encourage more kids to get to 3 years of a world language. And that hasn't bared out the way that we had thought it was, so we reconsidered the world language requirement. So what you see before you is really in the blue our current requirements, and in the yellow the proposed. So there would be no change to the humanities requirements. There would be an addition of personal finance of 0.5 for the electives. Excuse me, an addition of 0.5 for personal finance, reducing the free electives from 1.5 to 1.0, so still the same total. PE and health, there's no change. World language, we'd like to propose reducing the requirement to 1.0. Capstone, the consensus of the faculty was that for those students who make it an authentic learning experience, it's highly valuable. But for other students that are not engaged in the process, that it may not be the most appropriate use of their time. And a lot of our skills that we teach in Capstone are embedded across our curriculum. So the decision was to eliminate the Capstone requirement and offer it as an elective. And this would increase the number of free electives from 2.0 to 4.0, still making the total credits at 25.
Are these the state requirements or your proposed internal requirements?
So the the state. The things that, the changes that I highlighted are the changes that we can make. But per state requirements, we have to have 9 credits in the humanities, 9 credits in STEM, so that's that left-hand column, 1 credit in health, 1 credit in PE, 1 credit in world language, and then a sum total of 25 by state statute.
Yeah, and that, the new law is personal finance is required.
Right.
That's not, but.
Correct.
And that, but that world language, we could go to 1. That's a flexibility, it's not a requirement. And the capstone is a flexibility, not a requirement. But the personal finance is a straight up requirement.
The capstone was never a state requirement, it was a
It
private
was,
requirement?
up until this coming year that the
Oh,
change was
okay.
made to make it no longer required.
The next 3 slides, and I am happy to answer questions or go through the slides, but are really the rationale around each of the decisions. So the capstone, like I said, recent legislative changes have removed the requirement, and it has had mixed efficacy for students depending on their post-secondary plans. We believe that students may be better served by selecting an elective in their career cluster. But nobody wanted to lose capstone entirely because I think it's the gateway to internship programs in the future, dual credit enrollment. So we wanted to keep that in our program of studies as an offering for students. Personal finance is the next slide. It is probably the most cut and dry. We have to have a financial literacy course. We currently have a personal finance course in the program of studies that more than meets the standards put forth by the state. And we have future opportunities to expand our options for meeting financial literacy. One of the areas we'd like to consider is the economics course and expanding that. So the kids will have a couple of different ways to meet that requirement. And then, like I said, the world language credit reduction, although 3 years of a world language remains the standard for competitive college admissions, requiring the 2 years of students for a world language who are not intending to matriculate at a 4-year institution has limited their choices for electives. And we see a lot more kids looking at things in advanced manufacturing and in all kinds of engineering fields and those kind of things that may not be your traditional path. So we'd like to adhere to the state minimum of 1.0 world language electives. And that was endorsed by our world language teachers. And then the last slide is just the timeline. We're looking at a gradual rollout because of the way these changes fit with our current graduation requirements. So starting next year with our class of 2025, the 1 credit world language is an easy switch to make because kids will either have more than enough.
Yeah.
If those kids that have more than enough, those will count as humanities credits. So there will be no penalty. The capstone is a course that kids take as juniors. So the class of 2025 is currently taking it. So we're going to keep that and make the reduction in the capstone requirements for the class of 2026. And then, again, personal finance is already in our program of studies, but it will become a requirement for our current freshmen and beyond. That'll give us a couple of years to measure numbers. What I don't want to do is decimate our business course offerings in service to financial literacy. Yeah. So I want to make sure that we have, if we need to, we have other avenues for kids to meet that credit.
So curriculum has seen this, policy has seen this. For those of you who this is your first time seeing this, what questions do you have for Kate?
I'm looking specifically on the policy, and so this is, I think, the second page under B, P6146B. Is the 1.5 credit in personal financial management and financial literacy included in the 9 credits in STEM?
Yes.
Okay. And are world languages included in humanities?
World language beyond the 1.0.
Okay.
Would be so Spanish 2, 3, and 4 would be included in the humanities.
Okay, but that 1 credit in world languages is separate from the 9 credit requirement. Okay. Just because the way it's written, it looks like the 1.5 credit in personal financial management is separate from the, doesn't contribute to the 9 credits in STEM.
Yeah, no, it does.
So I do see what you mean. So maybe a suggested edit would be 9 credits in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, including 1/2 credit in personal financial management. Yeah.
Thanks.
I think that would be a good cleanup.
Do you have, Tricia, you have the document, right? We'll change it. Yeah.
Yeah, good catch.
Yeah, I think the bottom line for the board to consider is that we're trying to find personalized pathways for kids. And as much flexibility as we can give kids to explore, pursue, and to experience different opportunities to learn, wherever that may be, is what we're trying to do with the graduation requirements.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question. As you're doubling the number of flex, do we offer enough flex to
Yes.
fill that void?
We do. Our numbers are actually, because our enrollment is low, we have greater flexibility than we've had before.
Oh. So like for world language though, if someone did want to take the 2 credits, they have that ability?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, so students have 7 periods to schedule per year.
Okay.
And none of those are study hall. Study hall is built in that class period. So 7 times 4 is the 28 slots available, and you need to have 25. Most kids graduate with well over 25 credits.
Right. And keep in mind that for anyone who's looking to pursue a 4-year college program, that it's 3 years of language that's required by most colleges.
Yeah.
So plenty of our students are already taking advantage of 3 years worth of language and will continue to.
Correct.
This is really looking to target the students who aren't necessarily pursuing that path.
I guess from my mind, and this is totally not probably right, is we're changing their minimum requirement that kids would pivot to other things. We need to have the support for the other things.
Yeah.
We lose the support, something that we're saying there's not a requirement anymore.
We have a very robust elective offerings through our CTE department, through our fine arts, through our, there's a lot of, for a small school, we have a lot of pathways for kids.
Are there other questions about the recommended changes or about the policy as it's written? And this is a first read, so please feel free to read again, and you can bring back more questions for next time. I think we'll be looking to take action at our second May meeting.
This was good, Kate. Rewriting it was smart because there was a lot of stuff.
It became one of those things where you can only change it so many times
Yeah.
before it stops making
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And that's why we went with the Kate model policy and just started at the beginning.
Yeah, that was great.
So I'll take those changes you can give those to Charles, Laurel, that
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah did, and Trish and I can work that into the draft.
Sure thing.
Do you review these changes with parents?
Typically, informally. One of the things we don't have at Portland High School that I wish we'd have was a PTO. We have the sideliners, which are athletic boosters, and we have the music boosters. In your elementary schools, you usually have a monthly PTO meeting that you can share all kinds of things with. I've tried a bunch of different ways over the years. I've done a parent advisory committee. It's tough for folks when they're working to come to another meeting at night. So what I try to do is get to the music boosters and the sideliners a couple of times a year, and I always give them updates on things like this.
Okay. But our students would be familiarized with these changes, I imagine, in their counseling sessions as they're going to figure out which classes to sign up for and making their long-term plans.
And all of our juniors and seniors have family meetings, so parents are invited to come, and they're welcome at any time.
Other
I
questions?
would just be curious how you're positioning the new financial course. Like, how are we explaining to students and or parents this new mandate by the state?
So exactly that explicitly, because these affect our current freshmen. And most freshmen don't have a lot of flexibility with their schedule because they're taking most of their core. They're also fulfilling their 3 years of science, their PE, all those things. So as they're meeting with their counselors, they are going to have to fit in the financial literacy course at some point between sophomore year and graduation, which I think they will be able to do.
Other questions?
No.
No? Good. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.
We will have this on the agenda for a second read at our next meeting.
Would that be a second read and possible action?
Yes, yes. All right. And we've already taken care of 9B, so we're gonna move on to, like, we don't have any old business, we're gonna move on to committee reports. And I can update quickly that curriculum postponed our April meeting. We are meeting next week to review a new high school course proposal. So we'll be able to report back on that at our second May meeting. Policy?
Policy is going to meet on May 8th, and we have lots before us.
Yeah. Personnel, we had a couple of meetings since our last board meeting. We're still dealing with beginnings of contract negotiations and potential MOUs with 3 of our bargaining units, and we'll be meeting next week with Eric to talk about, take a first look at the teacher and administrator evaluations, and I believe that you can expect to see that on the board agenda for our second May meeting. Buildings and grounds?
No meeting scheduled.
Craig?
CREC is meeting on the 15th for their annual meeting. I believe Laurel and Charles are going to be in attendance. And CREC went through, they're the fiduciary holders for Head Start, and we just went through a federal audit of the grant money that they get, and we hit it with flying colors. So they have a great program. They have a new facility that opened up this past year, and I'm really proud of what they do. So you'll hear a little bit more about that. There's some PowerPoint presentations and things, but they're doing an amazing job. So that program will continually grow.
Dave, Board of Selectmen?
Nothing significant. The joint meeting, which we all know about, and then the May 1st meeting, big chunk of the discussion was the jobs pond situation and some possible resolutions. So nothing other than that.
All right. Youth Services Advisory Board?
They have their next meeting May 21st.
Okay. And Equity and Inclusion Coalition?
The next meeting of that is June 10th, and Eric sent out the Equity and Inclusion newsletter to the district today. So check that out for information about Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month.
Great. And Land and Building Usage Committee. Dave, you've already given us a little
pretty
update.
much. Well, we were actually going to meet tomorrow, but they decided to postpone it because of the Brainerd Place presentation or meeting. Excuse me. So we're meeting on 5:20. We do have at least one additional, I think it's a developer, don't quote me on that. It's either a developer or somebody that's interested coming in to speak to the meeting.
That's good. All right. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us in person? And you're looking away, so I guess that's a no. Anyone with us online who wishes to address the board?
We are the only ones in Zoom. So.
Oh, okay. No one wanted to stick with us to the bitter end. All right.
That boring, huh?
Apparently. All right. Board of Education member comments. Should we start over here today?
I want to say happy teacher appreciation to all of our wonderful, dedicated teachers.
Yeah, you're here.
And I'll say the same thing. Appreciate them every day. That's all I have.
I agree, and the nurses as well. They do an amazing job in the district. There is a legislative update from Kate on the 15th for the annual meeting at CREC. It's at the LOB. It's in person. If you want to find out what the Education Committee finally pushed through and what's in the big bills, come on over to the LOB on the 15th at 9 o'clock, and you can find out. And I think there'll be a webinar after too that anybody that's interested can watch.
Thanks. Tim.
Oh, just a shout out to nurses and teachers for appreciation days and I think the weeks overlap each other, right, for the two. That's it.
Angela?
Yeah, I mean, I echo the same thing. Teacher Appreciation Day, go teachers. Really good, nice. And thank you for bearing with me on my questions. I'm still getting acclimated.
It takes time. It's all right.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate our teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo that 100%. We have incredible teachers and staff. They are the heart and soul of our district. And in addition, as those of you who are parents who are getting the million emails from our incredible PTOs at our elementary schools also, there's a tremendous effort from our PTOs to really honor our teachers this week and celebrate them. So a lot of gratitude for those folks who are driving that effort as well. I wanted to mention quickly that I think this was since our last meeting. We met a whole month ago. What Chuck Hershon is doing at the middle school, what his staff are doing at the middle school with the personal interest projects. I had the chance to swing by and see the 8th grade personal interest projects back in April, and they were phenomenal, and kids were so revved up and excited about the things they'd explored, and it's a really cool thing what's happening there for those kiddos. And one of the highlights for me too was watching all of the 7th graders walk around checking out the 8th graders projects. I got to ask a couple of them afterwards, like, is this giving you ideas for what you'd like to explore next year? And there, several kiddos were saying, like, absolutely, I already know what I want to do. So they're thinking about it, they're inspired by the projects they're seeing from their peers. It's really neat. So I just wanted to give them some kudos for that. And the last thing I want to say is we have a budget vote in town on Monday the 13th, and so I hope we will all get out and vote and encourage everybody you know to vote. And that's all I have. If there's nothing else, we have no executive session this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second? Seconded by Sarah. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you.
Screw the reps for
Yeah.